Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of our virtual town hall series for TCU's Race and Reconciliation Initiative. Before we go any further, we would like to respectfully acknowledge all Native American peoples who have lived on this land since time immemorial. TCU especially acknowledges and pays respect to the Wichita and affiliated tribes upon whose historical homeland our university is located. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Frederick Gooding Jr., aka Dr. G, and I am chair of TCU's Race and Reconciliation Initiative. We have created the Race and Reconciliation Initiative only to study TCU's relationship with slavery, racism, and the Confederacy. And when I say we, I mean the Chancellor and Board of Trustees sent out the issue in the decree in August of 2020. We are an academically based, research-focused initiative that has been moving along quite well. And in fact, we're in year 2 of a 5-year plan. So what we're doing now in year 2 is we are providing space with our town hall series to literally go around all of our campus and listen to what reconciliation means to various community partners. We have started a town hall series that pairs up different colleges and including the School of Medicine, and we are in the 3rd part of our virtual town hall series. Today's featured guests will be individuals from the College of Education and also the Neeley School of Business. Before I call on to the virtual stage individuals to speak on behalf of both colleges respectively, I would just simply like to underscore the idea that if anyone has a question about reconciliation, feel free to email us at rri@tcu.edu. If any question arises that is outside the scope of our research focus, we will simply direct it to the appropriate parties. And so at this point in time, we are very pleased and privileged to bring to our virtual stage Jan Lucina, Dr. Lucina, who's speaking on behalf of Dean Frank Hernandez, and also Dean Pullen, Dan Pullen of the Neeley School of Business. We would each love to hear from you as you have opening remarks before we move on and hear from our guests. Thank you, Dr. Lucina.
Thank you, Dr. Gooding, for inviting the College of Education to this town hall. And thank you to everyone who does this work behind the scenes. It is an honor to be here. The College of Education has a long history of advocating for social justice and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Instead of focusing on our past work, we want to tell you about an exciting opportunity that will be impactful to all of TCU. Led by Dr. Brandy Quinn and members of our DEI committee and social work, the team applied for and received a TCU Inclusive Excellence Grant. Why is this important to TCU? This is important to TCU because TCU has identified inclusive excellence as a top priority for the university. And with the next slide, you'll see why that's important. Because students of color have told us they do not all experience equity and inclusion in their TCU courses or in the interaction with their classmates. This work also relates very directly to the mission and vision of the College of Education in our next slide. You can see here the mission of the College of Education is to prepare exemplary leaders for diverse educational settings in related fields who are reflective, ethical, innovative, and committed to all learners. In the College of Education, DEI must be an essential part of our work here in the College of Education. So I want to give you a kind of a summary of the work of Dr. Quinn and the DEI colleagues from the College of Education. And the next slide provides that abstract, and I'll somewhat summarize it for you. What is most exciting about this work is that the team will create connections with other units at TCU, and faculty will serve as facilitators to each other across TCU to positively impact the student experience. The program supports faculty to integrate DEI practices across the university curricula, and funding this project will be for such things as training, assessment, unit level intercultural competencies, a structured process for DEI learning, curriculum review and revision. Our college is proud of the work of our DEI committee and this team of thoughtful, committed faculty members who want to find ways to positively impact and improve the TCU student experience. In our next slide, I'm especially excited to show you our TCU Home Scholars. I'm excited to share with you a little bit about our TCU Home Scholars. We're proud to be a second-year member of the AACTE Home Scholars Program. TCU's Home Scholars have joined a national network of students from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds who are pursuing doctoral degrees. On the left-hand side of my screen, you'll see our new first-year Home Scholars, and they were selected based on their academic achievements and their commitment to promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the field of education. As a member institution, TCU's College of Education provides financial support and mentorship to our scholars. Each student serves a 3-year term, participating in research, advocacy, and policy initiatives, including attending an annual meeting in the Home Scholars Policy Institute in Washington, D.C. in the summer. Our outstanding TCU scholars are from the left, at the bottom of the left, Nicole Masol, Naomi Alanis, Jesse Ferris, and that's our first year, who are beginning this year. And then our second year include Cara Jones, Ebony Love, Leslie Ekby, and Ariella Martinez. So we're really proud of this particular initiative as well. Dr. Gooding, thank you for inviting the College of Education to be part of this important town hall, and I look forward to today's panel.
Thank you, Dr. Lucina. Dean Pullen.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great opportunity to be here today and to maybe have just a few minutes to open the window a bit to what's happening here in the Neeley School of Business. And certainly the RI initiative is such an important complement to everything that we're trying to do in the spirit of inclusive excellence, and both understanding and then forwardly acknowledging the deficiencies of our past. Really puts us in a position to make tremendous strides and improvement on probably what will be a very ongoing, perhaps never-ending journey toward wrapping the entirety of the business school, our culture, our strategic plan, our day-to-day operations, and our performance expectations around the notion of inclusive excellence. One of the great distinguishing features of the Neeley School of Business is that we live by a brand promise called the Neeley Promise. It really is our North Star, and it guides us every day and compels us to take the actions that we do. And the Neeley Promise is beautiful and it's simple, and it's just one sentence, and it's this. The Neeley School of Business unleashes human potential with leadership at the core and innovation in our spirit. It really doesn't even sound like a college of business at all. It sounds like a catalyst for action, of change, of really allowing people, humans, to have the greatest success in the society in which they live. And so if we're going to go on this journey, we know that we're only going to be successful if we're able to provide professional development opportunities to certainly our students, but our faculty and our staff and our alumni, even our corporate partners around inclusive excellence. We know we have to aggregate resources for non-majority students, students of color, students with a variety of identities, LGBTQ, veterans, first gen, even transfer students that have needs and opportunities for us to put them in a position to be as successful as possible here at Neeley, here at TCU, and beyond in their careers and their life. We have to advance and install curriculum development advances around inclusive excellence at all levels of our enterprise. We have to create opportunities, incentives to catalyze research and creative activity that operate at the intersection of business and diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. And it's really important to provide a space to do it all, right? An inclusive, accessible space for all learners to gather, for all of our humans with potential to be unleashed to really benefit. And that space is right in the heart of the Neeley School of Business, the Office of Inclusive Excellence, which we were so proud to open earlier this year. It's been a remarkable journey. Again, what we've done has just been a mile marker on an extended pathway forward. But I'm just so pleased to see some of the instances of impact already. We have sent out the call to our alumni and to our corporate sponsors, and they've answered that. We've been able to secure over $1 million of commitments to fund our Inclusive Excellence Office and the associated activities. We've been able to take that financial capital and invest in a variety of programs that benefits the totality of our stakeholders. We have a professional suiting program called Suit Up, Lead On, that no longer allows the requirement to have professional dress to go on the job interviews and to participate in our professional development programs. The cost of a suit is no longer an issue for students in need. We have the opportunity to provide that for them. We have a threshold issue to get in the Neeley School of Business. You have to pass a Microsoft Office certification test, which it has its own expense that sometimes was out of the reach of a number of our students. We found scholarships to support students in that pathway. So that's no longer a financial barrier to entry in the Neeley School of Business. Mentorship is terribly important to our students. We were very pleased just a couple of weeks ago to announce a fully endowed program for inclusive excellence mentorship between students and our alumni and corporate leaders that have interest in the Neeley School. That's been endowed by our good friends at JP Morgan Chase, a wonderful partner, certainly in the Neeley School of Business, but across TCU as a whole. Things that we're doing around curricular development and advancement continue to build momentum, and we're doing that in conjunction and partnership with TCU as a whole. We've improved our faculty hiring progress. We've seen some excellent recent hires that are helping to diversify our faculty and add additional dimensions of thought and perspective and life experiences to what we do as we prepare the next generation of business leaders. We're very, very pleased to have a diversity library on site. So it facilitates a number of book clubs and both student and faculty learning on the cutting edge of thought leadership in this area today. It's embedded in our strategic plan that we're rolling out here in a couple of weeks as one of the core pillars of the Neeley School moving forward, and on and on and on, not the least of which is the not one, but two incoming postdocs from underrepresented backgrounds as part of the Chancellor and Provost recently announced postdoc program for TCU. We're very, very pleased to be a forward participant in that. And so that's a lot of progress, but again, it's just beginning. And I think our progress as we look ahead certainly stands on the foundation of the good work over the last year of the RI initiative, as well as what's forthcoming in years 2 through 4, and then hopefully thereafter. So thanks for giving me a few minutes to provide this update and to make sure it's unmistakable the commitment that the Neeley School of Business has to supporting all Horned Frogs, all of our students, all of our faculty, all of our staff, all of our alumni, and those that can co-invest in our progress. It means a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you. And it means a great deal to hear from the Dean and also to hear words from the Dean as passed on by Dr. Jan Lacina, because it underscores the idea that important people on a campus find this important work important. Not to be redundant, but it's quite as simple as that. And so we are so very fortunate that you can join us today with our discussion that hopefully will provide critical perspective and deepen understanding that will ultimately push us forward and toward action and healing, or in other words, reconciliation. Without any further ado, I'd like to bring to the stage an individual that is no stranger to those in reconciliation land, and that is the mellifluous, the marvelous, and the magnificent, Mr. Marcellus Perkins. We are very excited to continue this journey as we continue to localize the idea of reconciliation. Again, it is something that is relevant to us all in all parts of the community. And so, Mr. Perkins, I will hand it off to you so that you can indeed introduce our guests and so we can hear what does reconciliation mean to various members from our College of Education and Neeley School of Business.
Absolutely, Dr. G. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you for our deans for starting us off this afternoon. And I would like to take the time to thank those that are in attendance. You could be anywhere in the world, anywhere on Zoom, but you have chosen to spend time with us. For that, we appreciate you. At this moment, I would like to introduce the rest of our panelists for today's session. Dr. Hyatt Holcomb is an associate professor in the College of Education. Ms. Ann Tasby is director of the Neeley Office of Inclusive Excellence and instructor of accounting. Hello, panelists. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good. So as Dr. G kind of started us off with, we're kind of going into the conversation of what does reconciliation mean. So I'll ask you all a range of questions centering around that central question of what does reconciliation mean. So without further ado, I would like to start off with asking, what exactly does reconciliation mean to you? And how does reconciliation inform your professional work? Either one of the panelists can start us off.
Okay, I can start. So first of all, I want to thank you for doing this important work that Dr. G said. This is really important. And when I heard of reconciliation, the first thing I did, even though I know what reconciliation is, I went to the dictionary and to say, what does reconcile mean? And I found there are like four to the Webster dictionary, and one of the definitions was to cause to submit or accept something unpleasant. And definitely there is something unpleasant that we are talking about here. And so when you are trying to reconcile, we are trying to reconcile with something that happened and with groups of people that did something. And so in order to deconstruct that, I would say, here I think of reconciliation as groups, maybe two different groups. One group which was underrepresented. There are many underrepresented groups, Black, Latinos, foreigners, like I am a foreigner. I've been an alien for so long in this country. I have an Arabic ethnicity. And the other mainstream group. And what does it mean to me to reconcile? I think to reconcile for those two groups is to stop denying something, to recognize and stop denying that the people who are underrepresented, you should really know that you've been underrepresented, there has been a minority, and that there are things that happen. So don't deny that when you are in an underrepresented group. And people who have been in the mainstream group, don't deny that there are things that happen that have caused discrimination, exclusion, intimidation, bullying to the other group. And that is the first step to reconcile those things. Don't deny on both sides. Don't deny who you are. Stop thinking, oh, why am I like that? Because I'm a minority. Because I'm a minority, I'm like that. There's no need to deny that. And on the other side, don't deny that there are things that happen from the majority that are not very pleasant to the minority groups.
Absolutely.
And that's the first step of reconciliation, is to don't deny something that happened. And if I want to think about that, how it relates to my work, I am a science educator. Mm-hmm. And I come from an underdeveloped country. I have been involved in a lot of research. So I'll talk about two examples specifically for my work that I do. Okay. One about teaching, one about research, and then I'll give the floor to Anne. One thing about the research is I am currently involved in a project with other universities. It's called an IBERS project, and it is looking at people who can help teachers in underrepresented groups and students in communities which are underrepresented to teach science in an innovative way and to really help them learn the concepts of science. So that's one thing I'm working on. I've also worked on and still working on, I went to Beirut a few years ago, 2 years ago, and I designed a unit, and I went to a low socioeconomic school, and I brought some of the resources that we enjoy here in a pretty developed country. And I worked with them and I supported them, and I'm still working on that kind of research. That's concerning the work that I do. In terms of teaching, I'm going to give my DEI is really deeply entrenched in all of the courses I teach, but specifically one course, the Science in a Global Community. I try to give readings about how science education in different parts of the world, in the United States and other developed countries as opposed to India, the Middle East, or other countries. And that's how I try to reconcile with the idea that what can I do to support the groups that I am from?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Stansby, would you like to also answer the same question? What does reconciliation mean to you?
She was so eloquent. I have to tell you, for me,
Yeah.
for me, it actually, as a certified public accountant, certified internal auditor with 25 years of experience in industry, I took it all the way back to basics. I mean, my heart jumped when I heard about reconciliation, because in my mind, it is a baseline. It is required, and it's all about tying out an overall or validating an overall idea or claim or position with unbiased data. Yeah. And so it's about getting to the data, and really it's not an opinion, it's the data, it's the facts. And so that's what this initiative kind of means to me, is an opportunity to dig deeper and analyze the data. And numbers, as my fellow numbers people, numbers don't lie. At the end of the day, it's the facts, right? Okay, so in terms of how it informs the work that I do, I literally get up every morning, sleeping, breathing, eating this whole focus on inclusive excellence. So the Office of Inclusive Excellence the whole point is to develop or create this reality of developing these well-rounded, culturally competent business leaders that are ready to go out into this global economy and actually be effective. And so the question is, how do we make this environment inclusive for all of our learners, and what can we do to hone in and make that happen a little bit every day? So it starts with the low-hanging fruit that is simple, things that Dean Pullen mentioned, and then it's also about the deeper entrenched work that has to be done, and it's being courageous enough to embark on the work and call in people to assist in simply making it happen.
Yes, absolutely. And I really appreciate these answers as our foundational responses going into today, because what I'm hearing you all saying, that there's a responsibility that we have to each other, right? Like, we're not isolated. We're not moving through the world as if other people do not exist. Everything is relational. How we understand ourselves is in the relationships we partake in. But a part of that is asking, who am I responsible for, and what am I responsible for? And if we are truly to be in community, then those critical questions will always be needed to answer. And then the way we go about that work will give us the answers to those questions, rather. I wanted to follow back, Ms. Tansby, with this to you. What areas of your college are you looking to improve your efforts?
Well, as Dean Pullen mentioned, I'm looking to improve all of them. And so the whole point of embedding inclusive excellence into our whole strategic growth plan is about looking at how we can embed it into literally everything we do, every program, every center of excellence, every curriculum. We are literally embarking upon not just meeting the minimum requirements that we embed DEI into the curriculum. We are looking at how can we do that in a meaningful way throughout a learner's entire experience here at TCU. And so that work is underway. We're also making sure that we deliberately focus on recruiting and retaining diverse students, specifically looking at recruiting and retaining diverse faculty, engaging all of our constituents to help us in that work, as Dean Pullen mentioned, in terms of getting our alumni involved. We have alumni that are really passionate about this topic. Our corporate partners have their own inclusive excellence initiatives that they're embarking upon as they try to engage in this work as well. So we said, hey, this makes sense for us to work together. And so we're not just embedding it in everything we do, we're helping our corporate partners do the same.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. Hakeem, I wanted to ask you a separate question. What efforts are taking place in your specific college with respects to DEI that you can share at the moment?
So a lot. And of course, I'm from the College of Ed, so I'm biased. I'm just going to say that we are doing a lot. We have done a lot, and we're still doing a lot. I think the grants that our associate dean talked about. The Inclusive Excellence Grant is a big project that my colleagues have started working on, trying to find out where diversity is, talking to faculty. That's a big thing that's happening right now. I also know of the Center for Public Education, and they are partnering with the Dallas Truth Racial Healing and Transformation. And they're doing something similar to what Dr. G is doing. They're partnering with the Racial Healing and Transformation by providing evaluation feedback related to their visioning sessions held in Fort Worth this fall, the late of this fall.
Yeah.
I also know of some colleagues who work on cultural embeddedness and cultural competencies, specifically in schools who have students from the Muslim religion. So these are some of the projects that are going on in our college. These are some of the main projects that are going on in our college right now.
Absolutely.
And there is also other colleagues who work on the language. They go to the schools of Hispanic origin and they work with people whose English is their second language to support their teaching.
Absolutely. And I didn't mention it, but I'm also a student of the College of Education. So I can attest to the work that's being done within my college. There's still a lot more things that we need to accomplish, but I do think we're moving and taking the steps in the right direction to see that. This is a question I want to offer to both of you. In your mind, what is your vision when you think of an equitable college, for the College of Education, for the Neeley School of Business? What in your mind would that look like when you think about equitable? Either or.
Do you want to go first, Anne? Or
Go ahead.
Okay. So I would say, so the short term, there are two. There's the short term goal I would think about and the long term goal. The short term goal, I would say, have resources being distributed equally in an equitable manner,
Right,
regardless of who you are. That's important. And don't if there's resources, don't exclude them from some people and give them all to others. That's important. So have resources distributed equally. And the second thing, I think, at the short term, as a long-term goal, and I think this is a long-term goal for everybody, is if we are always doing those programs of DEI, is because there is a need for it. I would like to reach a place where we really don't need to do that. And if we've reached that place, then we are all in a good place. I think I would say that's our long-term goal for everybody, like that diversity, inclusion, and equity is just authentic and part of the place you're in, that you really don't have to create something for it.
Absolutely.
And so I guess where I would chime into that is that I believe that what an equitable Neeley would look like is where we would have representation in our classrooms in the form of faculty, from our tenured faculty through to our adjuncts. We have reasonable representation, as well as we have reasonable representation from a diversity standpoint from our students. And then we also have inclusion types of initiatives that gives all of our students the opportunity to access the goodness that is the creative, innovative programming that we have. And it's not contingent upon your economic limitations or historical economic limitations, but you also get to have a complete and full and whole amazing Neeley experience. That's true for all of our students. In addition to that, from a career opportunity standpoint, that we have created career opportunities or mined career opportunities for everyone, so that the Neeley brand that drives such great career opportunities for some students, that is actually true for all of our students when they graduate. And so I think that's what an equitable Neeley would look like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're saying it. One thing that really resonated with me was getting to a point where DEI is no longer needed. that is so ingrained in the practice, is so ingrained in the culture, is so ingrained into the systems that you don't necessarily need its own separate thing to ensure that these practices are happening, because it is what we do. It is who we are. It is central to our identity and to our core, that we don't need an extra alternative auxiliary to maintain that. But another thing that I think of when we're thinking about this work is that P word of performative, right? Like, how do we, right? You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's a straight, you hear it when you know that you're going in and you're trying to make these changes, but sometimes you get the label of performative, like what you're doing is performative. How do you all, and I think this would be very helpful for some of our people in our audience, how do you all kind of grapple with that doing the work, but also being labeled as performative? If you have experienced that, how do you kind of work with that, work around it? How do you draw people in so they understand that, no, this is going to take some time. We're very genuine and sincere about this. This is not performative, but it will take time. It will take time.
I will chime in on that one.
Yeah.
I don't grapple with it. I focus on results. Yeah. I focus on creating results and then telling the story, because often I think that this whole notion of being performative comes from is an uninformed perspective. Because if you were engaged in the work and you're a student of the work, then you know that it's not performative. It is absolutely a key focus, and it's real. And the way to make it real is to not necessarily have, talking heads, like you tell the story. I think that the students, when you take it to the students, you take it to the faculty, and they can tell you unsolicited stories about how we are making things happen in the Neeley School. That's when I know that's when the work is done. I don't need to do anything but create results. And make sure that the story that's being told is one of results.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Anne that results are the focus. And if we are performing and we get results, so what? And just to support that, I think there is a novelist. Her name is Gail Godwin. She said, good teaching is 1/4 preparation and 3/4 theater. That's good teaching. But at the end, it's good teaching. So if somebody thinks I'm performing and I'm getting a good show, I'm getting a good result, I'm getting people to get involved, I'm getting people to reconcile and not deny what's happening, I'm okay if they call me performative. I'm not, I'm performative to do something good. And at the end, this label is just going to go away.
Well,
yes.
In addition to that, I mean, I also think being deliberate about communicating the story, being deliberate, thoughtful about communicating the story, and engaging and giving other people an opportunity to come along on the journey. And so not making it an exclusive, but an inclusive type of initiative, and just being deliberate about how we communicate that. I think that there's a lot of good work that's happening across the campus. But if people aren't aware of it, which is why I love this platform, if people aren't aware of it, then they assume that nothing is going on. And so it's important that we have forums like this where we can share.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. And I think that allows me to ask and lead into this next question in regards to when you first heard of RI, the Race and Reconciliation Initiative. What did you think? Did you think it was performative? And I'll preface this by saying two things. One, we're not sensitive. It's okay if you thought otherwise, if you did think it was performative. But at the same time, that was kind of our take as well. Dr. G, myself, Dr. Greensword, Dr. Karen Still, we kind of ask ourselves, what is this? Like, what is the work that we're about to involve in? Because it's not just you, but you're also representing communities. You're also telling stories. There's an emotional labor that's not necessarily seen. So how much are we willing to invest in this project where we don't even know what the outcome is? So for you all, when you all first heard of RI, what were some of your early thoughts about it?
Well, I would like to tell you what I thought about it.
Absolutely.
I thought about it that this is a clear example of when people tell you something is not possible, then it becomes possible. And that whatever is possible is just breaking the impossible. It comes from thinking it's impossible, and you want to break that to make it possible. When I came here 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would not have thought it's possible to have something like that. And for Dr. G and everybody's involved to get this group going and this initiative is just amazing. That's just what I want to say. And it's just an example of, I think, what the Italian philosopher, freedom fighter, Antonio Gramsci said. When something is pessimistic, it's the pessimism of the intellect. Like you can look around and you think it's not going to be possible, but the optimism of the will. And so that will and brought the optimism to make the impossible possible.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I have to tell you, my reaction when I heard it again, accounted, and that thought about, my sense for what reconciliation is. I said, yes. I said, let's go. How do I support that work, right? And even in the midst of, everybody has their own personal responsibilities and personal lives that they need to manage. And how easy is it to just go to work, come home, and try to stay disconnected? Right. But when I saw this initiative was happening, I just thought, wow, that's awesome. And then, honestly, and I'll tell you, since you said you and Dr. G aren't sensitive, when I saw that Dr. G was taking the lead on this, I said, oh my goodness. I said they must be serious, because they have called in a serious truth teller. And so they have to be ready for that. And so, yeah, so I was excited, and I'm supercharged about what you're doing. And I'm delighted that the Neeley School is engaged in helping and supporting.
Absolutely. Another question I want to follow up with you all is what encouraged you on campus with respect to DEI efforts, and what gives you pause?
I think the momentum has been picked up, and that in itself encourages me. The will, the optimism of the will is what encourages me, that the discussion has been opened. It has not been there 10 years ago, but it is there, and it's here now. It's here to stay. And again, my long-term goal is that we reach a point where it's become so much integrated that we don't have to have something, as you mentioned, external to gauge it or measure it or evaluate it. It's just part of who we are as a diverse and inclusive and equitable place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so in terms of what encourages me is the leadership commitment. One of the things that I always assess before I get involved in something is the commitment of the leadership. And when I say commitment, I mean willing to be vocal advocates and then actually make some things happen, right? So I'm all about results. So being committed to results. And then, and the other thing is that glow when you help just one, right? I mean, have you seen it? I mean, to see the look on our students' faces when we are able to, when we call them in for a focus group, and we called our diverse students in for focus group, I guess over 2.5 years ago. And we said, hey, what are we doing well? What can we do better? And they told us about this whole, the whole business suiting being a barrier, the Microsoft Office certification being a barrier. They told us about the need for mentoring. This is all stuff that students communicated to us was a challenge. And then for us to go to work and simply make it happen. I mean, and to see the reaction of the students and saying, wow, oh my gosh, you actually listened to us. Like when they threw these ideas out, they threw it out with some pause and thought that, well, okay, we recognize that you guys don't normally do this, but this is something that we see as a need. And for us to be able to actually do it and to see the students' response has just been incredible. What gives me pause, because you did ask that part of the question.
Yep. There's both sides to it, yes.
Yeah. So what gives me pause is the resource constraints, right? So there's so much work to do, right? There's so much work to do. And as you mentioned, there's a emotional and physical toll that it takes on you when you are under-resourced or in general, but then being under-resourced, that is a challenge. And so I think that there's so much work that needs to be done with great ideas, well-meaning, but to not have the resources necessary to execute is disturbing.
So I guess my follow-up to you would be, what do those resources look like? And for Dr. Hakeem, do you also feel that way? Do you feel that there may be a lack in the resources so that this work can be carried out to its fullest extent?
Did you want to answer first, or?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
In terms of what those resources look like, when we talk about equipping our students to become more culturally competent citizens and embedding DEI into the core, what we're talking about is the need for more teaching resources, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, more teaching resources and the resources to equip our existing faculty if we're going to embed it into our existing curriculum. Yes. And so there's that piece. Other resources would be if we want to have all these different programs, from access initiatives to different programs, we need resources to actually execute, right? And so I'm talking about that day-to-day boots on the ground execution. We need people in the fight. And when you have competing priorities in terms of, you know, teaching loads and so on, it's difficult to give it the attention that it deserves to make critical mass changes in the shorter term.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm thinking of resources. There are two ways to think of resources. There's the financial resources, and we can all make use of more.
Right.
But with the resources we have, what can we do? So that becomes the question. And I think Anne touched on that. I think the human power, like if we get more diverse faculty, more diverse students, that's just halfway through. If we already have those much seats, let's just work on those diverse initiatives. And the other part is, when whatever resource you have needs to be distributed equally among people so that people feel the equity is genuine. That's how I see the idea of resources.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, and the other piece I have to mention
Yes.
is around scholarships, right? And so I think that the price point to attend TCU, while it certainly is a valuable, it's a valuable institution, valuable opportunity, I think that it also alienates, the price point alienates some students from an access standpoint. And I think that we could be more aggressive around addressing that.
I agree. The cost of tuition does kind of inhibit the amount of resources we can provide, but also it also inhibits the diversity of students that we can also bring onto campus as well, which I think is a two-pronged issue. So for the interest of time, I want to transition into the section that we call rapid fire. I'm not sure how well you all were prepped for this, but at this point, this is my favorite part of the hour, in which I ask you all different creative questions. There is no right or wrong answer. You all have been doing great thus far, so I trust that you all will finish out strong. But these questions are meant to kind of make you think creatively about how we can think of doing this work. So the first question: if TCU were a song, what song would it be for you?
Okay, I'll jump in on that one.
All right, let's go.
It's so funny because I think about this on the way to work. I have my theme music, right?
Okay, DJ Tansby. Okay.
Okay. So step one, if I was thinking when it's my aspirational answer is "It's a New Day" by will.i.am.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then my In the Hunt theme music is "A Change Is Gonna Come" by Sam Cooke.
By Sam Cooke. Okay. Nice.
And I would pick Soul Shadows by Bill Withers, Joe Sample. It's been sung by many people. And I feel like this song, it's a love song, but if we want to transfer it to our context, it's like the shadows of our soul is everywhere, and we want to be included, and we want everybody to be included in this place. So that's what I would think.
No, thank you. I'll write these songs down because we might do an RI playlist one day.
Oh, I like it.
Another question, I think this one gets people the most excited. If you were chancellor for a day, what would you change first? Now, just his office is next to mine, so don't be too loud. But but if you were a chancellor for today, for a day, what would you change first?
I'll jump in. So I think I've already touched on mine.
Okay.
And I think I would, if I was chancellor for a day, understanding that there are a number of dynamics in play, right? But if I was chancellor for a day, I would definitely allocate more resources toward the work that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
From an inclusive excellence standpoint.
And in addition to that, I definitely would pick two things. The first that Anne has mentioned was put more resources or really work into making this work in the long term become so integrated that we don't have to talk about it much. It's just part of who we are.
Mm.
And then the second thing is I would try to support the faculty and staff with kids, maybe have a daycare, especially for people who are underrepresented and or single parents. That would really help a lot with everything.
Got it. And this is the last one. How would you get people as excited for Reconciliation Day as we do for football games here?
I'll let you take that one.
Yeah. How would we do that? Well, I don't know if I want to like maybe brochures or maybe distribute the link to those talks and give them maybe, some incentives, you know, to hear those talks, to get inspired.
Well, the other thing I thought about was just, you know, off the top of my head here, investment in branding, right? And making it fun, creating some amazing experiences that people can get behind, and just the tremendous branding that goes into football, into football here. I mean, social media is like, it's incredible in terms of social media presence and how they use that and so on. So I think that there's probably some branding kind of lessons that we can learn around that from our sports department.
Absolutely. And I wanted to, in the interest of time, wanted to give you all kind of some closing thoughts that you wanted to conclude on, whether that be your personal work or just representing your college. I do want to thank you all again for your time, energy, and effort being and sitting on this panel today. And I would like to offer you all some closing thoughts that you would want to give the audience.
So I would like first to thank you. I'm grateful for this initiative. I would like to thank Dr. G and everybody else who's been involved in this. That's really important work. And I think that we should always think how to make the impossible possible. That's how
I love that. So I guess what I would leave you with is kind of a response to a challenge that I received from students in that focus group as it continues to go through my mind. This whole idea that no one is checking for them from a diverse student standpoint. And what I want to do is say, hey, I am. I wake up every day checking for you and thinking about you and trying to make sure that from a Neeley standpoint, that we are doing the very best and most creative and innovative thing that we can do to no longer need these deliberate efforts.
Thank you so much. And as we conclude, I would just like to kind of reemphasize that I do appreciate these conversations when we bring in people from different backgrounds, different disciplines, because it just shows how this work of reconciliation does not exist just in the humanities, not just in CREST, just not in the women and gender studies, not just in the critical race theories field, but it can exist in our economics fields. It can exist in our hard sciences. It can exist in our arts, our fine arts. that everyone has a tool, everyone has a certain lens that allows us to make the load of this labor so much lighter, because they have the skills and they have the ability to speak languages in a sense that it draws other people in. So it allows other people to connect to it as well. So I just want to thank you all for the perspective. I want to thank you all for your time. And one of the closing thoughts that I wanted to share, and I was reading a book written by Octavia Butler, and she says, everything you touch, you change, and everything you change touches you. So I just hope it is always for the better, for the things you touch and change. With that being said, I wanted to invite Dr. Gooding. Dr. G, will you come back to the stage to close us out for closing thoughts as well?
Absolutely. And the only saving grace I have is the light from above, because it is so very difficult to follow up on such excellent prophetic words from our panelists and Mr. Perkins. So we're so very grateful for you all just sharing your perspectives. For indeed, we see that all spokes are leading to the center of the wheel. You all can mute your screens. You don't have to necessarily be on. We appreciate your contributions up to this point. But the fact of the matter is that the work of reconciliation is indeed ongoing. Think about who amongst us brushes our teeth on Tuesday talking about, I'm good for the rest of the week. No, it's a daily maintenance. Well, at least it should be, twice a day even. And so with reconciliation, it's never enough. We don't want to forget how we came together last summer. And so because we know that we're moving forward, we can't lose sight of why we came together in the first place. We must continue to open ourselves up to the possibility, the art of the possible, having these conversations, understanding the various perspectives, to hear about the Neeley Pledge and Promise, and to hear about the scholars that are being cultivated in college education. This is also very exciting. And it allows us to gauge accurately whether we're being performative or whether indeed we're making the steps towards progress. We hope that all of you will join us on April 20th, 2022, as we're looking to celebrate a second annual Reconciliation Day. And so all we're doing is building up this momentum as we're looking to come together so we can move forward together. We hope that you do indeed mark that day on your calendar, and we would love to take in the meantime, questions, suggestions, or even ideas about how we can come together and celebrate this idea of us influencing our future. There may be very little we can do about our past except recognize it and tell the truth correctly. But we do have an opportunity to influence our future. Speaking of what's happening in the near future, I would like to just simply also put out in the group chat that there's an event taking place next Wednesday, the 17th of November, featuring Mike Africa. And again, this is all part and parcel of so many good people on our campus are doing so many good things to raise awareness about issues that we should be aware. And so in closing, I would like to simply say that reconciliation should be owned by no one, but it's something that should be shared by us all. Indeed, race and reconciliation is not only the province of RRI, but it is something that everyone who dares to wear the purple can be a part of. That's what's so very exciting about this. And so we're excited that in this year 2 of our 5-year plan, that we're working explicitly and expressly with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to figure out how best to implement the key 7 recommendations. And so as you see with the Q&A that we've had in the back and forth, it's not necessarily contingent upon the success of reconciliation is not necessarily contingent upon all of us agreeing. Reconciliation, if anything, is about creating the space by which we can dialogue and then figure out how to form a consensus and move forward. It's not about agreeing and everybody being on the same side. We all are wearing purple. We're all connected right now because of purple. That should be enough. Our humanity should be enough. But what we're fascinated with and what we're looking to do is find the historical receipts that will allow us to have the proper conversation. If anything, so many of us have been passing each other like ships in the night only because we didn't have the proper information. And I think the more that we hear from the college education, the more that we hear from the Neeley School of Business and others, we're able to understand and process that many people are indeed moving us further down the path of reconciliation. This is our last town hall for the fall semester of 2021. So indeed tune in 2022 January, as we will indeed continue with our series. In the meantime, I simply just want to tell all of you before I sign off that while I, as the chair, cannot make any promises as to what will happen as a result of this initiative for reconciliation, I can indeed pledge to you that we are doing the best we can with what we have. Until next time.